Hello, CC of Middleburg Tutors. This is going to be your tutorial for Science, Week 17. We are still in our Van Cleve book, and for Week 17 we're going to be working on numbers 137 and 138. So this is Shake Up and Rock Bridge. This is going to be a really easy, quick tutorial. We are pretty much following the book word for word on this one, not veering off at all. So we're going to start with Shake Up, number 137. For Shake Up, you guys are each going to have 2 mason jars. So our materials tell us that we need 2 equal-sized jars with lids. We need some water, and we need 2 candies. Our purpose is to determine the effect of motion on weathering. So this, again, as with all of our science projects, is when you guys are going to want to do some background research on your own. Look at the Miss Wizzle sheets that we've given you to really have some good dialogue already ready to go so that you can have a lot of great conversation with your students about this project. It won't take very long to do, so you'll want to make sure that you can talk it up as much as possible and get them to really be thinking through why this happens in real life. So, all you're going to do is put about a cup of water into each jar. This does not have to be measured exactly, so you can just eyeball it. I'm not going to bring measuring cups for you guys for this. Alright, so our procedures tell us to pour the water in, and then we're going to add 1 piece of candy to each jar and close the jar with a lid. We're going to put 1 jar undisturbed somewhere and set it aside. And in the other jar, we're actually going to shake it up. So the idea is to see how long it will take for the candy to dissolve in the jar that's undisturbed versus the jar that's being moved around, which is simulating weather effects on something. So this is a really good demonstration of like rock erosion or the way that water has effects on so many things. So I would suggest letting the kids have a turn, shaking this up, passing it around the room to see, how quickly you can get it to dissolve. So, 1 piece of candy into each. We're just using peppermints. Pretty simple. We can see them pretty good through the jar. Alright. So we're going to put the lid on. And again, we're going to leave 1 sitting. Don't mess with it. The next one, all we're going to do is try to start shaking it around. So it won't take very long, probably just a couple of minutes really. But you can kind of start the process, let them watch what happens, and then pass it around to the other kids in the class and let them shake it up however they want to see how quickly is our candy going to start to dissolve. And again, it's not going to take very long. So it'll be kind of fun for them to see what happens, but hopefully you guys can kind of already see that our jar that we're shaking, the water is starting to get really cloudy because the candy is dissolving off of it into the water. The jar that's undisturbed is still pretty clear, even though we can see at the bottom that some of the candy's dissolving, the water's still pretty clear. So that's all you're going to do with this experiment. Keep working on this one until it pretty much dissolves all the way, or as much as it will get as you have time for. And then talk it through. Where do we see this happen in real life? Why do we think this happens? Why do you think God made it that way? Why is water so powerful? Any way that you want to get their brains thinking about this process in everyday life is awesome. So hopefully you can kind of see in there already that this one's getting really cloudy. It's very hard to see the peppermint. We can kind of see it underneath the jar a little bit, but it's getting a lot smaller. So that's everything for number 137, Shake Up. Now our next project is 138, and this is Rock Bridge. I cannot demonstrate this for you here at home because for Rock Bridge, the materials that we need are 2 chairs and then a bunch of books. The books need to be equal size to each other. If you look at the procedures, it tells us that we're going to set 2 chairs, and then we're going to start layering books across until they form a bridge. And the idea is to demonstrate how a rock bridge really does form in real life. I would encourage you guys to bring in some pictures if you can find some of rock bridges. Talk about how they may have been formed, see if there's any famous ones out there. That would be a really good thing for them to be able to see. So for this project, what you guys are going to do is we're going to be using the hymnals from the church sanctuary, because there are tons of them and they are all exactly the same size. So whenever it comes time for this, each of our classes can basically just take a field trip to the sanctuary. You guys can grab hymnals. I would encourage you to probably get like 10 to 15, 20 maybe even, so that you can try different amounts and see what works. You'll want to make sure you have 2 chairs, so you can either bring some chairs with you over to the sanctuary and find a spot in the hallway to set that up, or lug the books to your classroom and then put them back, whatever you want to do. I would probably take chairs over that way. But take a little field trip over there, let the kids pick out enough hymnals that you want to try. Just remember where you got them from, so we make sure to put them back when we're done. Set up some chairs in the hallway and let them experiment. You know, how much of an overlap can we get before the books are going to tumble? How far apart do we need to put the chairs? How close together do they need to be? So this is really going to be one where they are going to probably have a lot of trial and error. But that's good, because it will take some time and they're going to have to work together and really think through this. And then with that, as they see how it probably wasn't very easy to do, we can then show them some of the pictures of rock bridges and just talk about the beauty and the amazement that it is that God created some of these formations in the world. So that would be great. So that's all I have for you guys today for Science Week 17. Thanks so much.